Let's speak to Colin Alexander, a senior lecturer in political communications at Nottingham Trent University. Colin, good to have you with us. So I think this is North Korea's 28th missile launch this year so far. What's going on? Why is it ramping up its missile programme?
I mean, I think, as your report says, there's an element of threat here, or at least perceived threat from South Korea and from the United States. But I think we should also remember that North Korea has what should we say? There's an element of domestic prestige here. North Korea is quite a militarized society, and it perceives its success and its buoyancy based upon military results. So it's also quite a useful domestic propaganda tool for the Kim administration to use, and perhaps even sort of deflects from some domestic issues that may well be going on at this time.
What do you make of the international response? The US there calling for North Korea to return to dialogue. Is that a realistic prospect at this moment?
Well, I mean, dialogue's been, here and there, let's say. Certainly during the Trump administration, we saw fantastic inroads here. Although after the Hanoi summit between Kim and Trump, we saw a sort of lulling in that. At the same time, the status quo in terms of how North Korea sees the world and how the United States sees the world, that hasn't changed. And I think that was really revealed in quite startling fashion in the Hanoi summit. And I don't perceive that anything has changed in that respect. However, it is important that diplomacy always has an avenue, because the alternative to diplomacy usually involves a form of violence, which is in no one's interest, really.
And how would you assess current relations between North Korea and South Korea? Because apparently North Korea hasn't been answering scheduled phone calls from Seoul, which are supposed to happen every day to try and prevent clashes along the border. North Korea's just not been picking up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to say is that since the new administration came in Seoul in sort of autumn last year, they have had a more hostile approach to the north in comparison to Moon Jae-in, who's the previous incumbent, who was much more encouraging towards a dialogue with the north. I mean, you could certainly say that the north isn't picking up the phone because there's nothing to say. There's no interest, that they have no interest. They don't see that there's a validity in doing that. I would always say, as a kind of pacifist, that you should always pick up the phone and there should always be open channels for dialogue. At the same time, though, these phone calls are kind of a more formal approach to diplomacy. There is still back channel discussions that go on, and certainly communications are still exchanged. So we shouldn't think of it as being a complete rupture. At the same time, though, it is a sort of moderate cause for concern, or at least more concern than we have on a sort of general level about the whole scenario in this part of the world.
Good to speak with you, Colin. Thanks very much indeed for that. Colin Alexander there.